Today on Remington's Inside the Industry, we'll be getting a taste, pun intended, of the growing movement of people interested in sourcing their own food through the hunting of wild game. And a man at the cutting edge of this movement is my guest today, Jesse Griffiths. His is a very interesting story, and I'm a fan of his method and message that have people rethinking their thoughts about hunting as a way to put healthy food on the table. This podcast is brought to you by Remington Firearms. For more information on the new era of Remington, visit our site at remarms.com. Jesse, great to have you joining us. I thank you. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
No, I'm really excited about this, oddly enough, because I lived in Austin for a couple of years, and I used to frequent your restaurant, Fdw, correct?
Yeah.
A number of times. Always thought the food was fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Then I had the pleasure of meeting Brad Wolf last year and was invited down to hunt nilgai at his place.
It's beautiful down there.
It really is, and we had a great time. Really enjoyed it. Brad was just a fabulous host. He was excited because, as he said, usually I don't get guys that really know how to shoot too well.
He's talking about me.
I don't know who he's talking about. Well, I was there with a really good friend of mine that I hope one day that you'll have a chance to meet, because I think his name is Tim Fallon. He owns a place called Fdw Ranch, and
okay.
they're about 2 and a half hours southwest of San Antonio.
Oh, okay.
And he's got 12,000 acres, and he started this a little over 20 years ago. And they've got, I think, 36 ranges, and they take people and they teach them how to shoot properly.
Oh, yeah.
And they end up spending about 50% of their time with the Tier 1 and Tier 2 military. So you can imagine they kind of know their shit.
Yeah.
And he's just a great guy. So anyhow, Tim Fallon and I were invited to Brad's place with Paul Moxley. I don't know if you know Paul, but he's a banker friend of Brad's. And we were invited down there, and so Brad was really excited, and he said, "Hey, look, this is great. I'm with some guys that actually know how to shoot." Well, the first day I had a nice, beautiful nilgai and a great kill. And then there was some really foul weather coming in, so I headed back to Dallas. And Tim, who's the real guru of shooting, he stayed and he missed his first shot. So
oh no.
So we had whenever you get the guru and he misses something, you have a great time teasing him. So
sure.
But anyhow, Brad was a great host, and that's when he told us that he was involved or knew you. So I'm really excited to have you because, first of all, I know the restaurant, but I'm not an aficionado of hogs, but you certainly are. I just think they're great. Yes. So maybe tell me a little bit how you became this chef, hunter, angler of such notoriety.
Well, I think might be a little bit bombastic of an intro, but I appreciate that. I worked in restaurants almost my whole adult life, and so I learned butchery, cooking, everything, all the prep, everything, start to finish before I started hunting. So I started hunting probably about, I think, 16 or 17 years ago as an adult. And I was given a rifle and
What kind of rifle?
Well, I was given a Remington 700 in 270. It was a little beat up. I think it had been won at a raffle. And I looked up the serial number one day, and I think I did it right and identified it as a 1983 model.
Oh,
Remington 700. And also I shoot core locks out of it. I just always have, and it's the bullet that gun really seems to like a lot and have great success with it. And I tell people it's the only rifle I'll ever own.
Oh,
You can give me a rifle, and I'm probably not going to use it because I love this thing. It's beat up. It's got some scars on it, but it's a great rifle.
Yeah,
And
but isn't that to me a rifle is something that people should be able to pick up and say, boy, this just feels right.
right. Right.
You know.
Yeah, it fits well. I mean, I've got a large frame. It just fits me really well. I know it. I feel really comfortable with it. And also I love the history of it. I love that it's old. Um, and to me, I think it looks great. Put a nice leather sling on it, nice leather shell holder. Upgraded my scope a couple years ago, and yeah, I'll never go back. It's perfect, and I learned on it. And when I first started hunting, it was my rifle, and I've used it ever since. And to go back to that question, I just I started hunting, but I already knew how to process and butcher animals from my first career, and so I was able to kind of apply that in reverse to hunting, and that worked out really well. And just kind of really stayed with it. I was very excited by it. I had fished my whole life, and so I'd always wanted to go hunting. I like to be outside all the time, and that really enabled me to be outside pretty much year round, which was great. And stuck with it, and eventually just hunted over the seasons, and we started incorporating it more and more into our curriculum as far as classes go. And now that's my primary job, is kind of bridging the hunting and cooking aspects of outdoorsmanship. And I couldn't have a better job.
I was just going to say that's like a dream come true for people.
Absolutely.
And it's funny how sometimes people fall into something that they never anticipated.
Right. Right. Yeah, I didn't see that coming. If you told me when I was 20 that this is where I'd end up, I'd tell you you're crazy. But yeah, here we are, and I do love it. And over the years, we've incorporated hunting more and more into our curriculum. And now, or actually, I would only rephrase that as like I've stepped a little more away from the restaurant and more into the education aspect of it. And now that's primarily what I do is hunting, fishing, outdoor sourcing, and the cooking of that. And so, from September through March, that's my full-time job.
So, and how do you do that? Meaning that I know, but I know that the listeners would love to hear. I mean, because you take people out, just to kind of go through it, what you do.
Certainly. So besides doing some media things, I work with Meat Eater, other companies, even like cookware companies like Made In. They make really nice pans. We'll do some video work with them, recipes and lessons and technical things. But since 2008, we've run what we call the New School of Traditional Cookery, and that is primarily a culinary focused hunting course. And I obviously came into teaching that as still an amateur, which I think really gave me a good advantage as far as knowing what people want to learn about and what their first questions are and what barriers to entry are, things like that, and how to really target their curiosity in hunting and how to approach it from any budget level, from any approach that they're coming from. And so we've run the New School of Traditional Cookery since 2008, and it is a multi-day class. We currently are doing it in South Texas on a ranch down there, and it's basically we start at the range. We do safety. We make sure everybody's sighted in. We give them some tips on shooting. We discuss shot placement, things like that, and then we take them on a series of hunts. And in between the hunting is a whole lot of eating, and we're only eating game the whole weekend. I mean, we're constantly, if you're on a hunt for feral hogs and whitetail deer, that's all you're going to eat for the whole weekend. And then we do processing and butchery classes. We teach people how to skin and gut, how to properly, retain any offal like liver, heart, and things like that. And then we teach them on the second day how to butcher and break down, package, make sausage, charcuterie, and pretty much address any of their questions from that. But it's a real hands-on approach that allows people start to finish if they've never hunted before. You give somebody, sitting in the blind with them, and then we walk them through the whole process and try to kind of individually empower them by addressing their very specific questions and how they're going to use this in their own life and their own, hunting pursuits, how they're going to make this happen for themselves in the future and feed their families and so forth, and really celebrate that food.
That's really cool. I told you a little bit about Tim Fallon and FDW Ranch. About, I'm going to say, a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. It's my kind of go-to place when I want to get away and I just can't stand to be around people anymore. So I'll go there for a day or two. But I was there one time and I was talking to Tim and I said, you should start something for the new hunter. And because and this was really kind of around the beginning of COVID. And I felt even prior to that, I felt that there was a new group of people that really were kind of young. They wanted to know where their food was coming from. But to your point earlier, it's a big thing to say, I'm not a hunter. What do I do now?
Right.
And so I talked to Tim about it, and we spent quite a bit of time. And so last year he kicked off, and I don't remember how many people he would have, but the same thing. It was a 3 or 4 day course, and he brought a wildlife biologist, a chef, a food processor, just everything. They taught people how to shoot. They taught people how to hunt. It was fabulous. And he struggled, that first one, he struggled to get some, whatever the requisite number of people was. But if I'm not mistaken, in that first year he had over 12 of them, 12 different classes, which was
Wow.
pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Have you seen a lot of new type hunters, say, in the last couple of years?
Absolutely. And it continues to grow year after year after year. And I think from a demographic viewpoint, it's becoming really diverse too, which I think is super exciting. I think it should be. It's just like, because you really want a nice broad base for something like hunting. It's a complicated thing, and I really enjoy meeting all the different kinds of people that come to these classes, and their motivations are all kind of the same though. It's like, and it is, at the end of the day, it's mostly food, or knowing where your food's coming from, or food security and things like that. And I think that there's that one common bond, and it's very exciting because it also introduces you to everyone from all these different places. Everybody's coming from not even just different states, but different income levels. I mean, different. It doesn't matter, but you have this one commonality with all of them, and I think that's very exciting.
Yeah, so do I, and it's really important, because hunting. If we look at the demographics of hunting today, I think they're changing, but they're still predominantly, old guys.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting to see some of these younger people come into the sport.
Certainly. And for new reasons.
Yeah, exactly, for new reasons. But one of the things that I keep harping on, and it's one of the things I believe strongly on, the bond that people have from hunting is really pretty incredible, because most people my age, and I'm not a spring chicken, but most people learn from their father or their grandfather, and now to be able to see their own children coming along and learning from them. But
Right.
If you talk to hunters, the vast majority of them had somebody in their life that was really important to them, and they were going, and they said, I would have never done it without this person, and they, so that kind of relationship. But I see that even in hunting camp now. I had with two friends of mine, Larry Weishun and Tim Fallon.
Mm-hmm.
We were in Kyrgyzstan, and we had, I think probably it's got to rank as one of the worst hunts in the world. I mean, it was just terrible. We ate the same damn goat for 7 days, got food poisoning, you name it. It happened. It was just awful, just awful. But a couple of days later, we're going, we were with a couple of good guys. It was not so bad.
Right.
And it's one of the few things that I think that happens with.
Definitely. And I think you make a good point too, is like, a lot of people learn from their grandfathers, and kind of where we're at is the people that didn't have the grandfathers that hunted, and which is becoming more and more common. And it's like getting them into the field, because I think people are naturally inclined to want to go hunt or experience it. There's either out of curiosity, maybe they're only going to do it once, or maybe that's the only way they're going to provide meat for their families from now on. But either way, if they haven't been exposed to it at a young age, that barrier to entry is pretty hard. There's a lot of questions, especially in Texas, as far as private land goes.
Yeah, exactly.
Where do we go? How do we go about it? And then they're almost fearful of being out there first time alone. And then they do shoot a doe or a pig. And then what do I do now? They don't have the confidence. And if we can give them the confidence to just be like, if you do this, 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 and this, you're on the right track. If you get it cold and get the guts out, and then this is how you track, and this and that, then you know that you're doing the right thing. I mean, there's going to be, you know as well as I do. I mean, whether you're in the mountains eating a half rancid goat, or if you're in a comfortable blind in Texas, things can go south pretty quick. And so, if you can give them that kind of basic, like, dynamic of what to do if this happens, and they're going to go out there with that confidence and be able to hopefully achieve it. And then once they do it once, that we've got them forever.
Yeah. What percentage do you think continue?
That's a good question. I don't really know. I mean, we could probably be more aggressive with following up with people like that. I'd say that about 50% of the people that we do get have never hunted before. The other 50 are either hunted a little or hunted a whole lot, and they're there for the food aspect. They're there for the butchering and processing, things like that, because that's where they really need, in their minds, to have the improvement. That continue on. I do hear some back from former students here and there that have continued on, but like I said, it's in Texas specifically, where I'd say the majority of our customers are coming from. If you don't have land or access to land, it can be a little tricky. And it's also, that's one of the things that we discuss a lot, is your next steps. And for someone that doesn't own land in Texas, your next steps can be a little complicated, but it's not insurmountable. And we really try to address how to go about fostering relationships and making that next hunt happen, or hunting on public land. And just kind of the best ways to find that place, because here specifically, that place is the hardest part. You already got a rifle. The license here is dirt cheap. You just got to find a deer, after that. So that's really the hardest next step.
Finding a deer, but do you think is it easier to convince people to let you shoot their hogs?
That's a great question. And there's kind of a joke that goes around. It's like, if you charge $200 a day to hunt pigs on your property, do you have a hog problem? So
I hadn't heard that before. I like that.
Yeah, specifically, we tend to tell people that are, if they're going to sign up for like a day hunt or something, to do a lot of investigation into that place. Like, how often is it hunted? Was it hunted the day before? Because with hogs, that's going to make for a pretty hard hunt. They can be very sensitive to pressure. We hogs specifically, which I I have a real soft spot for. I really enjoy hunting pigs. I just wrote a book specifically dedicated to hunting pigs and eating them. Uh, a very large book too, over 400 pages
Oh,
of
really?
just hogs. Yeah, it's called the Hog Book. In fact,
I saw that, and I'm going to make damn sure I get one because I
oh,
think
please do. Yeah, we
I think it's
also,
pretty cool.
if you'll, I mean, just we also just won the James Beard Award for that book,
Oh,
which is
congratulations!
quite an accomplishment for a book about hunting to win the James Beard Award, which is a very food oriented. I mean, granted, it is a cookbook, but it also has a lot of hunting and
Right.
shooting information in there. So we are very hog focused, and getting people to hunt pigs is easier than deer. I mean, the accessibility. But I think there's just different ways to go about it. And I think that, this being Texas and friendliness can go a long way. We tend to just try to get people to foster relationships with people that have property, not necessarily a hunting property, but if you have property here, there's a good chance that you also have pigs.
Yeah.
And so our approach with new hunters or people that don't have enough money for a lease or a day hunt or anything like that is to go out there and just pound the pavement and figure out who really needs help controlling pigs. I mean, I was contacted last week by a local farm. We're in a bad drought here, so the pigs are coming up out of the riverbeds and the creek beds, looking for any kind of food that they can find because it's getting pretty scarce out there at the end of the summer. And so you have a lot of hog movement right now, especially at night. And I think the opportunity for a new hunter is to get out there and find these people that really need the help. Like they're the farmers that aren't going to sit up all night shooting pigs because they're tired from working all day in the heat. And where you can really kind of create a good dynamic relationship between somebody that needs their hogs killed and somebody who wants to kill hogs. And so I think that going out there and being creative and trying to find those relationships is paramount. And that can happen at a farmer's market is a great place. We always tell people to start there. It's like, go to the farmer's market and shop there for 6 months. Don't just go in, and cold call and be like, hey, can I come to your farm? Why
Yeah.
don't you buy some tomatoes from them for a while?
Hey, my
Get to
name's
know
Ken
that
Darcy.
farmer.
Can I come to your farm and hunt your hogs?
Right, right.
Yeah, I don't
You
think
want
that
to like
works.
create a little bit of a relationship, and then one day, I mean, if you're buying from 5 different farmers, I can guarantee you one of them has a pig problem.
Yeah.
It might not be very consistent, but it's going to be an opportunity. And maybe one day they're going to be like, yeah, sure. If you want to come out, we see them in the evenings out in this corner, down by the southeastern, down by the creek. They're going to tell you, and then you can go out there and maybe you're not going to see them, and maybe you're not going to see them for 10 times, but maybe on that 11th time, they're going to come out and you're going to shoot a pig and you're going to do everybody a favor at that point. And so we try to get creative with the way that those relationships are made too. And I think that for any budget, that there is a way to hunt pigs out there, and that's the lowest one, obviously.
Yeah, I agree. The pigs, though, they're honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I know I probably know a lot more about them than a lot of people, but they're one of my favorite subjects because, first of all, they are so incredibly destructive.
Yeah,
And the second thing is they're so freaking incredibly smart.
yeah,
I tell people talking about pigs, they've never hunted them before, and I go, look, this is what happens if you're hunting from a blind, for instance, and there's a feeder. You'll have pigs around, and you'll have deer. They'll share the feeder, or certainly be in the same proximity. If you shoot something, the deer will run 10 or 15 yards and stop and turn around and say, hey, my buddy Jesse was here a couple seconds ago. Where did he go? And the pigs, you'll see them running a mile away. They just
yeah,
are running, unless,
yeah,
of course, generally that's the case. Or people talk about, helicopters.
hmm
Well, that first group of pigs, they'll come out, but they won't come out ever again when they hear that helicopter. They're just
yeah,
really incredibly intelligent animals.
yeah. They respond to pressure very well, and I feel like they convey that pressure to their offspring really well too. So you'll see kind of a generational education that happens with them, which is really profound. I think a real good case for that would be that the old standard box trap, it's about 6 feet wide by 5 feet tall by
Yep.
8 feet long. used to be a very effective way of controlling pigs. And by used to be, I mean maybe 10 years ago. And now these things are way out of favor because they just don't work as well anymore. And it's not like they send out memos, it's like these pigs are, as a population, are becoming more wary of traps like that. And so trapping technology has had to grow with the pigs, which is a really definitive way to acknowledge their intelligence.
Well, the other thing too, though, with them that a lot of people don't want to hunt them, don't want to shoot them, or they want to hunt them. I should say don't want to shoot them, don't want to eat them. They want to hunt them, they want to kill them, they don't want to eat them. And
Right.
I don't really understand that thought process either.
Yeah, that's where I come in. I was talking to someone the other day, and we were doing an interview, and she was a little bit surprised that I was, with my background and my pro pig and pro eating wild pig stance. She was a little surprised when I said, like, I don't think that you have to eat them all. I understand if you are a farmer or a rancher and you go out there and you shoot, 15 of them in a night, I don't expect you to process all of them for a second. There's no way. My role in this whole pig game is that I want to educate anyone that's interested in eating them. And so once they're dead, that's where I take over. And so, this book, the Hog Book, is all about eating pigs, making them more palatable if they're larger. And it takes an approach of categorizing them into 4 specific sizes, small pigs, medium pigs, large boars, and large sows. And so you kind of get a framework to work with there in order to approach each pig's differently. Because if people ask me, what's your favorite recipe for a hog? And my question is, are we talking about a 2-pound piglet or a 350-pound boar? There's going to be a profound difference between those two and how you prepare them. And I think that one size fits all approach has backfired for so many people that they don't want to eat them anymore, or they've had bad experiences with them for one reason or the other. And I mean, really, most of this book is addressing fallacies, mythologies, and misconceptions about eating pigs and trying to, if you're interested, in trying to make them better on the table. And so we just do this very simple categorization in the book to allow people, just like with a little bit of, like insight into the pig they're looking at. I've got a pretty fatty female pig that's about 120 pounds. It's like, great, go to the big sow chapter. And then from there, there's a butchery diagrams, very complex, like in-depth butchery diagrams. And then it's followed immediately by recipes on how to cook that specific kind of pig. The best results. And then the book ends with the big boar, and then that's everybody's question, what do I do with a boar that's, 230 pounds? And we've got the answer. It's like not as much as you can do with another pig, but certainly something if you're interested. And if it's got strong flavors, here's how you conquer those. And here's also how you process the meat in the field to subdue those strong flavors, because a lot of times it can be mishandling that contributes to it. I'm not saying always, because sometimes they're just going to be really gamey, but not always.
From what they're eating, or just from age, or
it's a combination. Diet, for sure. Like when it relates to diet, if you have a pig in South Texas along the coast and it's very scrubby and dry, there's not much to eat, versus a pig from the a big boar from the pecan orchards in the northern hill country, you're going to see a profound difference in those two hogs. One of them is probably going to be excellent, and one of them is going to be probably mediocre. There's also stress. Stress contributes greatly to their flavors. And then kind of where they are biologically, sometimes they're going to have more hormones, and that can contribute to those kind of rank, gamey flavors that you specifically see in large boars.
That's interesting, because I hadn't even thought of that. If I go elk hunting, for instance, yes, I can get a smaller buck, or a larger buck, and the difference in taste is not generally significant.
Right.
The meat isn't tougher, or it's just, you can eat a big. I got a nice 345 point buck, or not point buck, 345 measured buck a couple of years ago in South Colorado. And I thought, I didn't actually go hunting for that because I'm a meat hunter. I'm not a trophy hunter. But this herd came in front of me from about, I don't even remember, it was about 400 yards away. And it just happened to be this big buck. And so I thought, what the heck? And the meat was fabulous.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen a big difference in elk. Certainly some difference in pronghorn, depending on where they're from. Some of them can be really sagey. But I have not eaten enough pig to really. Actually, I think I've only eaten it once. I've never actually butchered a pig myself.
Yeah. Well, and the butchery is important too, because, let's say a giant elk versus a small hill country doe. I mean, they're going to have drastic differences in size, but you're butchering them almost the same exact way.
Yes.
I mean, some cuts are just going to be obviously way larger, but the cuts are almost going to be kind of the same. But with pigs, if you approach them by size, there's going to be a lot of variance in how you cut them up to really optimize how that meat's going to be used. For instance, a small pig, you wouldn't cut the chops off of it just because it's not worth it. It's too little. A big boar, you're not going to cut the chops off of it because there's not going to be enough fat on them to really make that a really decent cut. But a big fatty sow that you shoot in January after she's been munching on acorns for 3 months, it's perfect for chops. So I think it's like, we'll keep going back to this. It's that variability in the individual pigs. And in that individuality is also what makes them so hard to hunt. They're all anarchists, just running out there doing whatever the hell they want to do. And that very specific difference between each pig makes them, I'm not going to say hard to cook, but it creates a very specific challenge. And that's why we created that 4 category approach, which, I mean, you could go into probably 8 categories or 15 categories, but at the end of the day, if you just break it down into those 4 groups, 4 size groups or size/sex groups of pigs, for butchering and cooking, you're going to have a lot more success.
I spend a reasonable amount of time in Turkey, and on business, and I'm going there on a wild boar hunt.
Fun.
Well, the thing is because the country is 90% Muslim.
Yeah.
First of all, they don't hunt them. Very few of them do. And so they get these monster boars that are, I mean, literally 350 pounds.
Yeah, just giants.
Just giants, exactly. But I don't. Well, what they do is, the Turkish people that do hunt them, they use them for dog meat, and the rest of the people, I guess, just for trophies. But I've been invited to go on one, so I have a lot of friends there. So I'm looking forward to it because I think it'd be, a boar that size is something that just is pretty astounding to me.
Yeah. I mean, it is almost a literal monster, because if you ran into it in the dark forest, I think that falls under the category of a monster.
Yeah, I agree. We were hunting with a friend of mine. We wanted to post something on Instagram around Christmas. Of course, you've seen the show Home Alone. I'm sure everybody's seen Home Alone, and
sure,
the kid says, or not the kid, but he's got the TV show that says that when the bad guys are coming to, says, "Take that, you filthy animal," after a bunch of gunshots. So our social media guy, he wanted to post something that had a feral hog right around Christmas that said, "Take that, you filthy animal." Well, we were out near Fort Worth, and there was 3 of us, and we were really close to the town. And there's a good number of hogs there, and we were sitting there up this cut line, and I don't know, maybe it was, I'm going to say half a mile, 3/4 of a mile long, and we sat for the longest time and really didn't see anything. And as we're sitting there towards my right, as we're facing where it went in, as we're facing the other end, there was kind of a brown lump. And, I knew because it was light out, I knew exactly what it was. It was not a hog, it was just dirt. So it started to get dusk, and we decided, since we could hear them kind of rummaging around, we said, well, let's go down and see if we can see them. So we did. Couldn't see anything. We went down another cut line, and then one of the guys said, I'm going back. I'll go back and get the truck. And so then he phoned. He said, here, they're coming out on this cut line now. So we went back, and I could not get a good shot. The guy I was with, he got a couple of shots, and they took off into the forest. So these 2 guys went into the forest, and I said, look, there's no point in 3 of us going in there to find this. I'll head back to the truck and bring the truck back. So I was walking back, and I've never had this happen to me before. I was walking back, and remember I said there was a brown spot or lump on my right-hand side as I was facing the end of the cut line? Now I'm walking back to the truck, but it's dark out, and there was this big brown spot or dark spot on my right-hand side again, but it would be the opposite side as before. And I thought, I'll bet you that's a pig. But I just wasn't sure because it was just laying there, not moving. And as I got closer and closer, it charged me.
Yeah.
And fortunately enough, I didn't have anything. I had my gun in hand, but I had something else I was carrying. So I was not prepared. And fortunately, I screeched at it, and it changed direction at the last minute. But it could have been kind of ugly. It wasn't a nice feeling getting charged by a pretty big boar that night.
Right.
Because I think they can do a lot of damage.
Absolutely. I mean, as soon as you said like a big brown lump, I was like, it's a bedded pig. I knew where the story was going. A friend of mine and I walked up on one. We got about 8 feet, and we couldn't identify it. It was in the shadows. It was in the sun had come up, been up for about an hour, and we walked right up on one that was on a bed, and it was curled up, and it had made a bed that was almost a foot tall of like dead leaves, and it had created this perfect bed, and it was just curled up into this giant ball. And it was probably easily a 200-pound boar. And we got right up on it before we realized what we were looking at. And then he got up and left. It was kind of a comedy of errors. I didn't have a round in the chamber, which is evidently very important for taking a shot. But he woke up when he heard a click. And that's when I realized. I think we both were a little fearful at that point, because he woke up and looked at me, and I looked at him, and I was like, "Ooh, I need to rack around first." And he luckily ran off in the other direction. But they are. I mean, I think that really speaks to how chaotic their behavior is. Like you can take a couple shots. And you might spook every pig for a mile, or one might remain bedded. They sleep in kind of weird places. Sometimes they're in groups, and sometimes they break off from groups, and sometimes those groups will merge. It's really hard to predict their behavior. And whenever I love hearing these stories because they're always so different, but I kind of knew where yours was going. But it really speaks to how interesting these animals are, how smart they are, and how they just really respond to, being hungry or thirsty or needing resources or being pressured in different ways. Like you just never really know what they're going to do. You might have a property that has pigs on it every night for years, and then you might go a year without seeing one. It's very strange, but it also is, I think, the enthralling part of it.
Yeah, again, my friend at FTW, I mean, it's a big ranch, 12,000 acres, but for years, I've been going there for 20 years, I guess, and for a number of years, he had none, absolutely none. And then all of a sudden, you'd go out hunting early in the morning, or you'd be going out to one of the ranges even midday, and you would see a whole bunch of them on the skyline or cutting across the road or whatever. And then all of a sudden, and then you'd go hunting, the next year and not see anything.
Yeah.
They're pretty amazing, but it doesn't change the fact that the southern United States, and I'm going to say the United States, not just Texas, we have a massive problem that I don't know what they're going to do about. I mean, we have a massive problem with deer as well.
Yes.
But deer are pretty easy to, if they had open deer season, they could resolve that problem pretty quick. I don't think, regardless of what happened with the hogs, I have no idea how they control it, because it truly is a problem. And it's, my facts I may not be totally accurate, but if I'm not mistaken, a female can get pregnant when she's about 6 months old.
Correct.
The gestation period is 105 days.
Yeah, 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So really, within the first year of birth, that one female can have a litter of as many as 24.
Well, I mean, usually, I think common litter size is going to be 6 to 12.
Right. So she's got 2 litters within the first year.
Certainly.
So a minimum of 12, but a maximum of 24. How the hell do you, and how do you resolve that? How do you address that problem? Because if we don't figure out a way, it will get worse and worse and worse and worse. And I feel for these ranchers and farmers that have to deal with it, because they're very destructive.
Yeah, very, very destructive. And like you said, they're hard to control and they're spreading. And then, certain weather variables will cause them to spread in a new way. When there's a drought, they spread out in a certain way. And then when there's flooding, they also will start to move around in a different way, and they'll inhabit different areas, and they're just constantly on the move. I mean, I won't be surprised if within the next decade or two, we start to see them in the Rockies. I mean, they're just gonna spread. And hunting doesn't account for enough of them. There's helicopter control, trapping, which is probably the most effective way. And then, other methods that have been experimented with, like poisons, things like that, but nothing very effective or ethical has really been tested yet. And so there's been a lot of problems with the poisons so far. But we're going to have to come up with something, because we are at the beginning of a massive, massive boom, and we just see them more and more.
I agree completely. I don't, and the poison I know about, but, I haven't seen a poison that will kill a hog but won't kill a deer.
Right. And I think secondary kills were the main issue with those, be it a raccoon, a quail, or a bald eagle, a carrion eater that's gonna presumably eat the carcass of a hog. And so kind of back to the drawing board on those. And I think they're looking at ways to make them sterile, which sounds like a plausible approach. Increase hunting. And I think, again, where I come into this game is like eating them. It's just like, can we get more dead ones into the food supply? Because we need to kill them. And to me, it's a bunch of protein, and it can be very good. And so my whole stance is, I'm definitely not a biologist. I'm not an expert on how to go about killing large amounts of pigs, from a national perspective, not just a statewide perspective. That's not my forte, but it really is, once they're dead, what do we do with them? And, I'm going to hold up my hand every time and be like, let's try to eat them. Let's just try. Let's feed the hungry. Prisons. I don't know. There's got to be some way to turn this viable protein into food. I mean, beyond that, it's just great. We serve a ton of it in our restaurant because it is so good. And I think that a lot of people, just they've been fed bad information or they never tried it. And if we can just recruit more hog hunters, especially from, to circle back fully, especially from these new crops of new hunters, we need most of them to be hog hunters. It's just like, go out there and shoot pigs and eat them. and we're killing a few birds with that stuff.
Oh, look, I agree. You're kind of preaching to the choir, but even if we increase the hog hunters significantly, there's still no way that we get in front of it. I remember reading something not so terribly long ago that for the hog population to stay even, we would have to kill 90% of them.
Yeah, annually.
Annually.
You'll see numbers between 60 and 90% on that, and
Right.
it's absolutely true. And hunting is not going to achieve that, especially because the acute pressure that shooting puts on a hog population tends to make them either move or go more and more nocturnal. I will say this though, technologically, hog hunting with rifles, the ability to control the population is distinctly gone up with thermal hunting, and the ability to use semi-automatic rifles and thermals at night.
You mean the one the semi-automatics, the ARs that the government's going to take away from us?
Correct. I mean, people ask me all the time if it's a viable hunting rifle, and I'm like, absolutely. I mean, I see this on the daily, that it is the way to do it. Now, I mean, I have a BAR that I use at night with a thermal. It's heavy, but it's handsome.
Yeah.
And but it does work. And I mean, from a hunting standpoint, that for a kill count, I think at night, because these animals are probably, depending on the time of year, anywhere from 75 to 100% nocturnal.
Yes.
Even in good, cloudy, cool weather, they're at least crepuscular, where they're going to be coming out, dawn and dusk. But like this time of year, you will not see a hog in daylight. And so if you're trying to eradicate them, especially when they get out into big fields, i.e. agricultural fields, the best way to get a few of them is like that. And, thermal technology has been very beneficial as far as that goes too. Helicopter hunts, and then, like I was saying earlier too, improvements made in trapping systems, with cell cameras and just better technology. You've got nets, you've got like whole traps that drop down, things like that. Whole sounder capture, which is really important, like capturing the whole family group, so you're not educating any of them, is paramount. And so you're seeing a lot of really good technology coming down the pipeline. So as far as that goes.
With your school, how many people do you take at a given time?
Last year we did 4. This year we're bumping up to 6 per class. We did 10 classes of 4 people last year. This year we're doing 6 classes of 6. So it's a pretty moderate amount of people going through there. But I'm also participating in other programs with other agencies like Parks and Wildlife Foundation, Stewards of the Wild, Texas Wildlife Association. Try to involve myself with them also throughout the season, so that we're talking to a lot of different people about these topics. But through our school in particularly, we're going to have 36 students this year.
And they spend, you said, 3 days or 4 days?
It's a 4-day, 3-night course.
Okay. And in South Texas?
Yeah, it's right between San Antonio and Corpus, if you're familiar with the region. I would definitely call that South Texas.
I'm sorry, between where?
San Antonio and Corpus Christi.
Oh, sure. Well, that's along where Brad's place is.
Yeah, it's about 2 hours north of there.
He's way south.
He's down on the plain, with all the sand dunes and the nilgai,
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a substantial pig problem too. I mean, every time I go out there, we shoot pigs. Every time. They're just everywhere.
I never saw one pig when I was there.
Really?
No.
That's crazy.
and nilgai, that's the first time I've hunted nilgai. They were really a blast. I really enjoyed them.
It's such a unique animal and a unique hunt. We also serve a lot of nilgai in the restaurant because as a meat, I really appreciate what they are. They're invasives, they're non-natives, and they also eat a very organic diet. They don't touch corn feeders, and so the region that nilgai are harvested out of They feed very cleanly, and again, it's an invasive, and we really like to serve invasives at the restaurant. So lots and lots of feral hog and lots of nilgai as well. And so,
Look, I missed it. What's an invasive?
just an animal that's just having a negative impact on the environment, a
Okay.
non-native. So
I feel like an idiot now.
no.
But
I
now
mean,
with other people, I'll really appear smart.
sure.
So
If we
I'm
were in
good with
Florida,
that.
we'd be serving lionfish. Well, I mean, hell, if you're
Yeah.
in Florida, you'd be serving just about everything because it's overrun with a lot of not like very destructive non-natives, and that's kind of the poster child of what can happen if things get out of hand. But they also have so much like backwoods, marshy, hard to get to environments that these invasives really thrive down there. And the same thing with Texas. We do have a lot of exotic species that have escaped, like your feral hog and your nilgai. But those are the two that we really focus on in the restaurant.
Yeah. Oh, well, look, I really enjoyed hunting the nilgai, but they are a very wary animal.
Yes,
They're pretty quick to move, and you have to be pretty quick to shoot. So
definitely. It
so
is. It's a very unique hunt.
yeah, it really is. And as I said, Brad treated us just extraordinarily well, and I can
Yes.
tease my buddy Fallon for his miss. So all in all, that was a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
Um, so how does actually you mentioned earlier you're in a drought. So exactly when has Austin not been in a drought?
Oh, when it floods, we always joke about Texas weather. I think everybody jokes about their weather, but I really think that Texas is the most justified and just extreme variables in weather. Um, we had a terrible ice storm here for over a week, about a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
It
no,
was
I
highly destructive.
I was here. I live in Dallas.
Yeah.
So
Yes. So you know what I'm talking about. And
yeah,
now if you look at the 10-day forecast, especially in Austin, it's not dipping below 102
right.
for the foreseeable future, and no rain. Uh, Trees and grass, everything's dying. It just affects the animals significantly. It also affects, the produce, that we're trying to buy from local farmers. It's been a very hard year as far as produce goes. A lot of the summer crops that kind of coast through the heat are not. They're just shriveling up and dying because we haven't had a drop of rain. I don't even remember the last time it rained. It's been over a month since we got even just a little sprinkle. So, it's kind of the weather pattern that we'll see here. And we're always joking. It's just like the only way we get out of a drought is with a flood. And it'll just, hurricane's probably going to park itself over Texas for
Yeah.
a week. And we're going to get, 15 inches, just kind of like what the devastation that's happening in, Kentucky right now. And, I'm kind of afraid that's probably going to be the next move. This fall, we're just going to see a lot of rain. I mean, we need it, but that's kind of what you get down here. It's just like there's a lot of extremes. Not to say that it's also beautiful here. For spring and fall in Texas can be just gorgeous, but
Well,
right now we are in a severe drought.
yeah, I'm from the Canadian Rockies, and Dallas is just way too hot for me.
Yeah.
We've had, I think, it's hard for me to say I'm, I had I have, there's a little medical history, but nonetheless, I had osteoarthritis. I have it in my knees. I got an injection about 6 weeks ago, and I got a damn infection
Yeah.
in one of my knees. So I've had 2 operations since then, and on antibiotics, and so for me the temperature is absolutely perfect. It's been 70 degrees in the hospital and at home, and
Right.
I've only gone out to see the doctor, but this is temperature day after day that I just can't stand. The winters, I lived in
Hmm.
Austin for 2 years, and it's much warmer there than it is in Dallas during the winters.
Yes.
But I kind of laughed when we had that big freeze a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, that everybody was all over and, terrible this, terrible that. Well, how does anybody plan for 100-year or a once in a lifetime cold freeze?
Right.
gee, I guess I should have done this. Well, why would you do that? You've
Yeah,
never had it before.
An impossible situation.
Yeah, exactly.
We were out of power and water for days down here. I mean, it was in the 40s in our house.
Yeah.
And with no water. And it was a bad situation, but it was one of those extremes. And it gave me an opportunity to try a lot of my cold weather gear out. I will say that. It was kind of nice to bundle up, and
that's a good thing. But
looking out the window right now, it's a very fond memory of when it was 12 degrees.
Exactly. Where does one get your cookbook?
You can get it through a couple places right now online. So the new book is called the Hog Book, and it's available at thehogbook.com. We self-published and self-distributed this book, so it is really primarily available online. Like I said, it's a big book. It weighs over 4 pounds and has, I think, 115 recipes, over 400 pages. It's kind of a larger work. And then also just recently, Meat Eater has got it on their website. So that's one of our only wholesale places. You can get it from Meat Eater. And we also have it at the restaurant. So Fdw in Austin, you can get it there, but probably for most listeners, thehogbook.com is going to be the best place to find that book.
Okay, well, I'm going to find one shortly after we get off. I'm actually excited about it.
Yeah.
What about if people want to go hunting with you?
We just released our schedule for the New School of Traditional Cookery probably about 3 weeks ago, and all of our classes sold out in 8 minutes.
Wow.
So, we're on our 13th year of doing that, so they've come to be in pretty high demand. I think that we're getting better and better at the classes and how we present them, and so they're in pretty high demand. But we will be releasing our schedule for the 2023/24 season, typically in the spring of that year. So next spring is when we'll start doing that. And but you can still go and get all the information from the website. The Fdw website has all that information. That's DAIDUE, and you can go to the New School page and kind of see everything that we're doing there, and kind of gives you a good breakdown of it and what we're doing. And then on social media, I'm on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Sacalait, which is the Cajun word for crappie, and that's sac.a.lait. And so I'll put a lot of information
I'm sorry,
up
say
there
that again.
too.
SAC what?
sac.a.lait.
Okay.
And sometimes we'll put some information up there if we're doing a class or a certain event. So, we'll work with, like I said, a lot of different outdoor organizations like TWA and Parks and Wildlife Foundation, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and things like that, to kind of just any kind of conservation or food related thing, just try to get out there and get as many people on board as possible.
But that's, look, Jesse, I'm going to cut it off now, but I hope that we'll have an opportunity to shoot together one time. Maybe Brad will be nice enough to invite me back.
Absolutely. I would love that.
Yeah, it would be great. And, I won't try to give you a gun or sell you a gun or anything like that.
Yeah, I've already got one.
You've got one.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it when I hear people say, I've got whatever it is and I'm not giving it up. I just love it. Especially to me, because this is one of the things that I don't do. All gun companies, they've got people that they sponsor, they give this to. And I go, screw it. I'm not giving anybody anything. I'm not going to sponsor somebody. I want people to, if you really care about a product, you'll buy it.
It's true.
If you're kind of well known, you've got a good Instagram, etc., I might consider giving you a good deal. But because the reality is I think most people look at these real hunters, that have got big followings, TV shows, and they go, yeah, they're using this because they're getting paid.
Sure.
And I want people to look and say, they're using Remington because they love it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To
me, that's the be all and end all. So there's been
Yeah.
some pretty well-known people that said, well, okay, I'll use somebody else's, but those same pretty well-known people are back to using a Remington, and one of them, very well-known, is his favorite gun's a 270. So he's the same as you.
Yeah. No, I love that round. I mean, the only issue I've ever had is just how hard it was to find my precious 150 grain core locks. There was about a year there where it was really hard. And it's my gun is very picky. It really likes those a lot, and I try to make it happy. And so, but I was able to consistently find enough to get through the season.
Well, people that don't really focus on shooting very much, they think you can go to the local store and they can buy anything you want, in a particular caliber, and it works nicely, which is just not the case. I mean,
Right.
if I'm shooting a new gun, I'll take 4 or 5 different manufacturers, and there's always one that just, it may not be a different manufacturer, but different grain, different number of things. It just,
Certainly.
the gun just goes, this is it. I'm at sub MOA, and the other ones I could be at 3 MOA. Just same grain, different manufacturer.
Absolutely.
But look, I'm going to ping Brad now and say, look, next time the invitation comes, I'd sure like to meet Brad or Jesse. Sorry.
Yeah. Let's get down there.
I'd love to. Jesse,
it's a beautiful spot. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. As I said, and I love to hunt the nilgai. I never saw hogs, so next time I'll bring my AR and my thermal, and maybe we'll get some of those too.
Perfect.
But I'd love to meet you sometime, especially out in the field.
Likewise, Ken. Thank you so much.
Jesse, thank you. I appreciate your time. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.